It is a global crisis. The UN's Office on Drugs and Crime estimates that 296 million people consumed illicit drugs in 2021. That's an increase of 23% compared to the last decade.
Users suffering from drug abuse disorders further skyrocketed to 39.5 million. That's a staggering 45% increase over the same 10-year period. What factors contributed to this troubling escalation in drug addiction globally? Well, Addicted, a new 3-part series, investigates, and here's an excerpt of that.
The region is seizing more synthetic drugs than ever before.
Siempre son grupos armados que ellos son los que mandan en la zona.
No espera ser capturado o muerto en desarrollo de operaciones militares.
The main producer is Colombia. Target number 1 is Europe.
The purest cocaine you find in Gothenburg right now. We've seen the opioid epidemic explode in this community.
Her whole hand is, this is all dead.
Smugglers have modified their vehicles to conceal drugs.
मंशियात गड्ढे पे रेड कर रहे हैं, फौरी तौर पे हमारे पीछे आओ। पहला गोली मारूंगा। और ये देखें कि जो ना जानवरों को दिया जाता है।
Hey, knife out.
2 milligrams is more than enough to kill them.
We're executing a misuse of drug act search warrant.
Not even one.
Addicted, premiering 24th May on CNA.
Well, producers Shehzad Hameed Ahmad and Jonathan Chia join us on Asia First this morning. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the set today. Shehzad, I'll start with you. You filmed across 10 countries around the globe and focused specifically, or I wouldn't say specifically, but especially on synthetic drugs in the first part of the series. So tell us about the countries that you went to.
Right. So we spent the last 6 months investigating the scourge of drug addiction, its production and trafficking across the globe. The first part focused on synthetic drugs, essentially chemicals that mimic the effect of traditional drugs. So we started in Pakistan's largest city, Karachi, and we embedded on a night drug raid where we ended up arresting drug peddlers who were selling crystal meth to university students. A very recent survey just came out that 16 million students in Pakistan are synthetic drug users. We then shifted focus to Thailand's north, where Myanmar's Shan state is producing yaba or meth that is being infiltrated. So we embedded with the Phamang Task Force, which is Thailand's military unit, and we were able to bust the trafficking of this drug. We then shifted focus to Canada, and we found the devastating impact of drug decriminalization policies. More than 50,000 Canadians have died due to fentanyl drug overdoses in the country because they wanted liberal drug policies in the country. And finally, we ended up in Australia, where we filmed with activists who are trying to create awareness amongst the population to help them understand how addictive synthetic drugs can be.
A dangerous assignment. Did you feel scared at any time?
It was dangerous, but I think with a lot of planning and careful correspondence with the teams on the ground, we were able to manage very dangerous access to some really dangerous characters, as evident in the second episode.
Yeah, dangerous characters, because you met with, or rather you investigated how traditional cartels are wreaking havoc around the world. Did you actually interact with them, and what did you find?
So we wanted to understand the whole chain. In the second episode, it's called Narco Plague. We started filming in northern Colombia. It's a place called Catatumbo, which there is no government control. So we actually had to get permits from the cartels themselves. And so that's how the country runs. And we eventually went to another place called Putumayo, which is in southern Colombia, and we filmed with a farmer who produces cocaine.
Right.
And we understood, and what we found out was that he's being forced to make this cocaine, and he only earns 0.5 cents per month for making cocaine. And then all this cocaine is transferred to European destinations like Belgium, Sweden, and the cartels eventually are making all the money. And after 7 p.m., you're not allowed to go out. So we only had till that point to film, and we had to run out of the place.
Okay.
Otherwise, our safety and security would be jeopardized.
Okay. Jonathan, you focus more on Singapore, so I'm sure you didn't need a permit while you were doing your work. But tell us a little bit more about part 3.
So part 3 is about the rising cannabis consumption among youth in Singapore. There's a worrying stat, which is that 61% of cannabis users arrested in 2023, out of that, 61% were new users of cannabis, and more than half of them were under 30 years old. And the youngest one arrested was just 13 years old. So to try to witness that, we followed the Central Narcotics Bureau, CNB, on a raid around Singapore, and we found cannabis, we found paraphernalia like bongs, joints, rolling papers, and more strikingly to me personally is that we also saw young children in some of these homes, which just goes to show how the harms of drug abuse doesn't just harm the users, it harms people around them, harms family, innocent children. We also peppered the episode with personal testimony. So we get raw stories from former cannabis abusers who told us that, contrary to popular belief, cannabis is extremely addictive. And the kind of psychosis symptoms that they experience, which include schizophrenia, even suicidal thoughts. And then, of course, we have experts from Institute of Mental Health, IMH, and Harvard, who talk about how modern cannabis has far higher THC levels than before, and the kind of far-reaching damage on the long-term health of the abusers, what that's like. We also have a look at what's happening in Thailand. As we all know, Thailand has relaxed its cannabis laws over the last few years. Yep. And so the use of cannabis among the teenagers have surged tenfold. And so you can just imagine what kind of damage that drug has done to an entire generation of youth in the country. And these kind of damages, once it's done, is hard to claw back from, right? So the core message of the episode is that it challenges the myth that cannabis is safe and the cost to society if we get it wrong.
I wonder if the episode also looked at, the sort of measures that have been taken in Singapore to kind of raise awareness about, I suppose, the horrible effects of drug use.
Well, the first thing is Singapore has very strict enforcement on drug abuse. Just to give you an example, in 2023, CNB held just under 1,000 joint operations with ICA at our border checkpoints to stop the influx of drugs. CNB seized $13.5 million worth of drugs and dismantled 25 syndicates. So that sends a very clear deterrent signal. But besides enforcement, there's just one aspect of their multi-pronged approach. There's a lot of outreach to the youth. Yep. The National Council Against Drug Abuse, NACADA's survey recently found that although 90% of youths are against the legalization of drugs, only about 20% of them are unsure about cannabis. Yep. So this signals a relaxation of their attitudes towards cannabis. So to investigate that, we held a discussion with some youths to find out why that is. Right. We heard that it's because of peer pressure and the glamorization of this drug on social media and pop culture. Okay. And then we also hear from social media influencer Luke Chan, who uses his platforms on Instagram and TikTok to talk about the harm that drug abuse has done to him, and he gets a lot of DMs from his followers to ask for advice on how they can quit the drug as well.
And Shehzad, was the experience, in the countries that you went to any different from what Jonathan has described in terms of the impact on the youth, in terms of the impact on families?
I think that one of the key messages in the documentary is that what happens in the streets of Colombia has an impact in the streets of Sweden. It has an impact on the streets of Singapore as well. So that was one of the messages that I came across. And the impact on the youth has been terrifying. And I think you'll see that in the documentary itself, how people are struggling. But there are stories of hope as well, of how people are coming out and trying to help them.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, we will have to leave it there. Appreciate you coming on the show this morning. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. And of course, you can catch the show available on our CNA Video on Demand, CNA Insider, YouTube, and MeWatch.